Well, let's resume our meeting. So I will be inviting the deputation to speak in order, and each deputation will be given 3 minutes. You have an earpiece here, and channel 0 is the floor, channel 1 is Chinese, channel 2 is English. And you are not protected by the powers and privileges Legislative Council Ordinance, so you have to be responsible for what you say. And after you speak, we will ask the Secretary to respond. Let us start. Mr. Li Tingfeng, campaigner, Hong Kong Association for Democracy and People's Livelihood. Thank you, Chairman. Secretary, government officials, members, good afternoon. First of all, we would like to criticize the government. The government has a number of policies, but there is no platform for us to communicate. So it is a good arrangement for the Legislative Council to provide us with such an opportunity. Now, when we look at the government's policies, well, the government, either they formulate a policy without doing anything, or they do not even formulate a policy. So when we look at the COP's website, although it has 6 major functions, however, I and ADPL are worried that the COP would not be able to discharge its duty. Let us focus on the theme today, that is about support for low-income working households. ADPL attaches a lot of importance to this issue, and we think the government has a very important role to play. For the COP, it intends to put together a poverty line. So we think that when the government formulates the relevant policies, it should look at such a poverty line, and this should be you should be looking at the median income of society, and we should work accordingly. In other words, when the government formulates policies in the future, trying to help low-income families, you should look at the total income of such families. I have some information concerning the COP here. For its functions, other than alleviating poverty, it should also be preventing poverty. We think this is very important. ADPL has been supportive of this, and we really think that the COP should try to prevent poverty. As for support for low-income working households, we would like to make 3 points. First of all, as I said just now, when you look at the wages of the people, wages should always go up. Now, even though we have SMW in Hong Kong now, however, the wage level is still lagging behind those in other countries. Now it's 30 Hong Kong dollars, but some consortia are crying out foul. I think this is unreasonable. We think the SMW should be raised to at least $35 in order to protect the low-income families. And also, there should be another poverty prevention measure. That is, there should be a low-income subsidy, and a second safety net should be provided. Some deputations have just arrived, and I would like to tell you this. Channel 0 is the floor, channel 1 is Chinese, channel 2 is English, and I would like to remind you that for what you say today, you are not protected by the powers and privileges Legislative Council Ordinance, so you have to be responsible for what you say. And thirdly, just now, an individual said some language that's not acceptable in the council. So please do not say such foul language. Otherwise, I may ask you to get out. Next, Ms. Chiu Sin, community organizer of Dongchong Community Development Alliance. Good afternoon. For our alliance, we are in Yatong Estate of Dongchong, and we work for the grassroots. Well, there was a survey last year. It discovered that among the 18 districts, Dongchong came first. That is, it's the poorest community in Hong Kong. Well, some people may think that the islands are poorer. However, the most populated area on the islands is Lantau and is Dongchong, and the most people in Dongchong live in Yatong Estate. Yatong Estate is a relatively new PLH.
We've got the highest number of children. Almost 10% of our population are children. Most of them are below 14 years old. Therefore, at least one parent has to stay at home to take care of them. Even if that parent is to work, they can only get casual work, thus affecting the income of the household. As for Kaifongs living in Tongchong, they face two difficulties. First, very expensive transport expenses. For many households, if there's nothing important, they won't leave Tongchong. And sometimes in our contact with the Kaifongs, they don't understand the subsidy schemes and assistance programs. We say that Yatong Kaifongs are not Hong Kong people, they're only Tongchong people, Tongchong residents, because they know nothing about society. They're isolated from the rest of the society. They only stay in a corner of our society. Secondly, they face high commodity prices. Many Kaifongs told us that the commodity prices in Yatong Estate are many folds higher than those elsewhere in Hong Kong. Sometimes even vegetables are too expensive for them, so they have to take the bean sprouts instead, because we're talking about $10 to $20 per catty of vegetables. So they just have bean sprouts. So it's not that the Kaifongs don't work. Sometimes they told us that the more they work, the poorer they become. They have to pay for their transport, fares, food, etc. And the living conditions are very poor. So here, Secretary, would you please implement this low-income subsidy as soon as possible so that these households won't fall into the CSSA net? And do you have a timetable for this low-income subsidy? We don't want to see the population of poor people grow. Next, Ms. Low. I am Low from Tongchong Estate. I have the following views for the low-income subsidy. In Tongchong, many low-income workers face low wages, unstable job opportunities, frequent shift of jobs, etc. There are very few job opportunities in Tongchong, and many middle-aged and elderly persons are not yet eligible for social welfare. Besides, transport expenses, children's tuition fees, etc. are very costly. Many Tongchong families are living in plight. Therefore, the government should implement a low-income subsidy to support these low-income households. This is something urgent. We strongly ask that the government adopt this as soon as possible. We also have the following requests. Children's learning expenses are very high. Therefore, the subsidy should take into account the element of children, in particular their special needs and the needs of the disabled. Apart from basic household expenses, in accordance with the size of the family, the subsidy should be increased proportionately. Besides, the work incentive transport subsidy should not be used to replace this low-income subsidy. Transport should not be mixed with living expenses. Besides, we don't want this low-income subsidy to working households be like the WIT scheme. Otherwise, in remote areas like Tongchong and Yatong, it will be unfair. Because traffic expenses across districts are costly and high. Thus, their working hours may be decreased, and this will affect their livelihood. In his manifesto, the CE did make an undertaking in this regard. At the moment, the wealth gap is serious and inflation is huge. So please do not delay this low-income subsidy. You should not save these families from their plight. Registered social workers. Mr. Chairman, I'll say something about implementation. I support social enterprises. The last term and this term of the SARG support social enterprises were from Fucheng Estate. Our population is aging. Over 6,000 elders are above 65 years old. 35% of our households have new immigrant women. These residents are low-skilled workers. Our center implemented a hospice care service for 3 years. We play different roles in our community. We assist the disadvantaged elder households, and then through cooperation with funeral services companies, we implemented a scheme. Funeral services were outsourced to the local community. So we went back to the era when workers earn a livelihood by making plastic flowers. Now this is to make use of the time and energy of the new immigrant women. In the past 2 to 3 years, through that mode of operation, we're able to assist those who are in need. Today's focus is not to introduce how successful our scheme is. We're just saying that there's a huge demand in the community, but the government has not worked hard enough to support this. We are setting up social enterprises, and to a certain extent, we're assisting the poor. Precisely, we're able to assist those who are in need in the community. Thirdly, we feel helpless. Government support for social enterprises is inadequate. It has disregarded the voices of the disadvantaged in society. We felt that in our working process. So we're now reflecting on one point. The rich is becoming richer, the poor is becoming poorer. This is a serious social problem. Here, I've brought with me a lantern made by our social workers. This lantern is to tease the government for not being able to take care of the disadvantaged, both in the long term and the short term. The government should be more committed and set up and conduct more studies on social enterprises. Next, Mr. Leung Shek-lun, Advocacy Officer of the Hong Kong Federation of Women Centre. Mr. Chairman, I represent Hong Kong Federation of Women Centre. For the proposed low-income subsidy for the working households, we would like that to be implemented as soon as possible. Secretary, when you handle household poverty, don't think that you are at the same time resolving the problems facing the women in poverty. In 2011, there was this analysis which revealed that women received much less care than men. And very often women are unable to work because they are the carers. And policies of supporting families usually are income-based. Such policies have not considered the fact that the breadwinners got the subsidy and then the women got nothing. So family income is not equivalent to women income. So you have to handle the relationship between men and women in terms of power. So for support policies, you should have a checklist on gender mainstreaming. When you assist the poor, will the women in the poor households benefit as well? And then there should be a carer subsidy to take care of those women who play the role of carers. We should recognize their contribution. And then for support for low-income working households, the government is actually an accomplice to working poverty because nursery services or childcare services have not been adequately provided. Men go out to work, women sacrifice their jobs. Given the present situation of Hong Kong, low-income working households are more vulnerable to this problem. As for support given to the working poor, many government services consider child care a duty of households themselves, and very often the buck is passed to women. So I hope that child care services can be improved. I suggest that CCF provide for those between 3 to 6 years old child care services or nursery services for kindergarten pupils in collaboration with KGs. All right, next, Tin Shui Wai Community Development Network, Mr. Chan Wai Lun. Thank you, Chairman. I very much agree that the poverty problem of Hong Kong is mainly because the government has not served as a good gatekeeper. Thus, the rich becomes richer, the poor becomes poorer. Why? Our wages are very low. Even if we have the SMW, it's insufficient to meet ordinary family expenses at the grassroots level. For SMW, we're talking about biennial reviews. The present level is already low. A review once every 2 years is really too slow, is lagging behind. Many European countries encourage people to go out and work, and when people work, they enjoy living subsidies that can satisfy their basic needs. For the working poor, the bigger the size, the poorer the household will be. Many people are saying that if you have a child in your family, your household expenses will be tremendously increased. And there's no actual support for families with children. For example, nursery services. The government has been cheating the public. It always mentions family-oriented services. Many childcare services are temporary in nature. They are not to allow women to go out to work. Long-term nursery care is very much inadequate. So many women are forced to stay at home to take care of their children. They can't go out to work. As a result, only one family member can work. In Europe, they have adopted a model that encourages both parents to work. Who take care of the children? Government nurseries and schools. But at the moment, the government has disregarded childcare services, thus leading to household poverty. We have several suggestions. Number one, the SMW should be reviewed such that those who go out to work can earn a living by their work. Secondly, we agree that there should be a subsidy for the grassroots households to take care of their children. Thirdly, childcare services must be adequate and well provided, such that both parents can go out to work. Then we can address the low-income problem. Next, Mr. Liu Manking. I'm a frontline social worker. I work in Sham Shui Po. If I ask myself how we should assist the poor, how should we face the grassroots kaifongs? In the past couple of years, the CCF has implemented a new project to assist the have-nots. I've been helping the kaifongs to lodge applications. Some of them may be living in very poor conditions. You are sitting in an air-conditioned venue with water in front of you. You don't smell odor, but for non-CSSA kaifongs, their living conditions are deteriorating. They live in places with no windows, with bugs to bite them, etc., etc. What can we do? Can we do something to help them? Last year, you distributed money once. We were told that this year you distributed money again on a one-off basis. Such one-off disbursements won't be helpful to the kaifongs. We should do something meaningful to assist the low-income households. Why don't we regularize such provisions? As some kaifongs suggested, this should lay a foundation for a low-income subsidy. Secretary, what's your stance? What's your timetable? If you see that kaifongs are so concerned, they've come a long way to air their views. Can you do something to assist them? Have you heard them? Will you formulate a timetable? That's number one. Secondly, to regularize your assistance programs is very important. Will you have a phase 2 subsidy for the grassroots households? You may give some temporary money to the kaifongs who may owe their landlords rent. They can use the subsidy to pay rent. The new school year is coming. These households may need subsidies for their children. Here we have representatives from the SWD. So what about manpower? Even old areas need teams of social workers. Apart from cash subsidies, you should meet the needs of 70,000 kaifongs. You have their particulars. We need social workers to follow up on them. Well, some deputations are not coming. Ms. Cheng, 人人健康協進網絡 Mr. Lu Wai-hon from 民生關注網絡 Mr. Harry Young, Professor Danny Poon, Ms. Mabel Leung, 秦女士 Ms. Jenny Chang, Mr. Wang But from Lion Rock Institute, and Mr. Chik Song Man. They've not come, for the record. Next, Ms. Wai-lin Sao from 中港低收入家庭互助網絡 Good afternoon. I'm a household. As a household, I should try to save money as far as possible. But now, we dare not spend one more cent. Otherwise, we cannot make ends meet. Is it that even if we earn $1, we won't be eligible for PRH? We're a 4P household. We've been waiting for 4.5 years. Some kaifongs have been waiting for 6 years. They've not yet been interviewed. I understand that my premises was withdrawn to form a subdivided flat. So I had to move into a 200 square feet room. you are living in luxury flats of an area of 1,000 square feet. You won't understand the inconvenience of living in a subdivided flat. For $3,800 given to us, it's actually given to the estate agents. And a few years ago, rent increased by $200 every year, and now it's $1,000. The electricity subsidy of $1,800 is just to subsidize the landlords from the taxpayers' pocket. Not everybody benefits. You are not assisting the poor. The more you assist the poor, the poorer they become. So you should expedite your PRH program.
Yep. Well, as an official, you will have to be even-handed. It's not only those who are living below the poverty line who are poor. Actually, with high inflation, high commodity prices, and high rent, well, some of us might have wages slightly above the income limit, and yet will not be eligible, and therefore it's very unfair to us. My son would also like to say a few words. Yes, good afternoon. Actually, I'm having a harder time than others because I'm less able to focus and concentrate, and according to the social worker, I'm just a borderline case and there are no resources for me, and the administration would only be able to take care of those with more severe conditions, but then there is also an age limit, and there is no intention on their part to take care of us. Does that mean that we'll be abandoned? Or is it that they are just going to give up on us? And the teacher says that, well, he has already taught the whole class, but then I have not been able to learn anything. And the teacher says that I'll have to acquire more extracurricular hobbies and so on. But then my family has gone bankrupt a few years ago, and therefore we have no money at all. And our income might be a little higher than the median wage. And for textbook allowance, I can only get very little, and I do not have the resources to learn anything. That's why I'm most unhappy, and I think the administration system is grossly unfair to both myself and my family. I think we should be looking at the family's income ratio. We should be given the subsidy on a pro rata basis. I think that's fair. Next, Mr. Chow Wing-chi from the Women Workers Cooperative. Yes, when we talk to some of the Kaifongs, actually there is also this non-mainstream conclusion. All right, some Kaifongs said that I'd rather you don't give me the subsidy, because when we are given the subsidy, because as one of the Kaifongs said, every dollar and cent would be pocketed by the landlord. All right, previously they increased the rent by $200, and now they're increasing that by $1,000. We suspect that the landlord might be thinking that, all right, 10 months down the line, they might be giving you an extra $8,000, and therefore the landlord is going to pocket it. So it's not the needy families that will be benefiting, and therefore I'm referring to Sham Shui Po. I think it's very commonplace to find that, and many Kaifongs are actually faced with the situation of a renewal of the tenancy agreement, and the landlord would say that, all right, it doesn't matter if you cannot afford to pay the $1,000, because many others are actually queuing up to rent my flat. That's why I think you should introduce rent control before you introduce the subsidy. Only then would help the Kaifongs. Actually, for rent control, we used to have it in the past, but then the administration often says that there are reasons for not doing it now, and you have not been able to come up with the figures to show what kind of problems will be created by rent control. All right, for PRH flats, they also have a rent assistance scheme. Does it mean that for the it shows that the administration does have some understanding of the tenants and also rent control and so on. We also think that we should legislate to forbid the landlord and the estate agents to evict tenants and resume the flats, and also that should also be built on the rent control system. We believe that for water charges and also power tariff, there should also be control, so that the landlord should not be reaping any profit from this. And on the basis of a rent assistance system for people living in bed space apartment and also inadequate housing like subdivided flats, there should be a subsidy. Well, we should also legislate to ensure that there would be decent flat size so that landlord would not be allowed to retrofit their flat so that they can turn them into subdivided flats, and also for units that have been left vacant for a long while, they should be resumed so that we can build new buildings and then turn them into public housing. And then for different residential developments, for one reason or another, the occupation permit has not been issued, and as a result, they've been left vacant for a long while. I think the developer should be asked to sell those flats to the administration, and then the administration can resell them at reasonable prices, and developers should also be required to sell the units at their cost, and then the administration can also sell them or rent them to those in need. And then the URA should also be revamped. The URA is not supposed to be a developer. It should be serving the community. It should be putting up flats to meet society's needs. And then we should also open up some temporary sites. And some of these temporary sites have been rented to developers so that they can construct golf courses, and also they could also turn them into gardens and so on. I think the administration should look at it from that perspective, so that we should deal with the situation by building more PRH flats and low-income flats. That would be one of the ways to help solve this problem. Yes, Ms. Low. I think we have also heard many Kaifongs say that with the subsidy alone, it's not going to help. So why do they need the subsidy? That means the grassroots, they are actually too poor. They are not skilled, and therefore they are finding it hard to make a living? Or is it that the cost is already too high? Is it that for those who are high power, who are working in air conditioning rooms, they are actually controlling everything, and as a result, for those who work hard, we have not been able to share the fruit of success, and we have not been able to make ends meet. All right, we have already got the housing problem. There are many people who are living in coven rooms, and also bed space apartments and subdivided flats, and also the scheme of control agreement for public utilities. They can adjust the tariff up or down, and you're supposed to provide some relief by offering this waiver, but then in the end only the shareholders have benefited. But then who suffers? What is the public purse, public cover, and also the public? And actually people are speculating on stocks and shares, and also property development has also become one of the ways that people can get rich. But then our living cost has also gone up as a result of that, and we're actually using our hard-earned money to support them. And what happens? So we are only greasing these consortiums and also the tycoons, but then in the end, the majority of the public will suffer. Actually, in the past, we have also trusted this laissez-faire policy and non-interventionist policy, but then it's a big lie. In fact, on the face of it, it means that the administration will not be interfering in the market, and yet the administration is actually helping them, and they are actually controlling public resources and land resources, and in fact they are able to enjoy everything in the free market. And what's happening to the workers? Actually, these employers are actually exploiting the workers, and they are not able to share in the fruit of success. So why is it that we have not been able to make ends meet? It's been 16 years since the reunification. Yes, it's Hong Kong people running Hong Kong, but then actually you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. You're actually robbing the poor to pay the rich. And without universal suffrage, without the ability to elect our chief executive, the system is not going to change. And even for NGOs, we'd like to join the COP so that we can discuss the issue together, but then we've been ruled out. And so in the end, we're actually benefiting those who are in power, and those who do not have power will suffer. In fact, if we are not going to introduce tax reform so that there can be a progressive tax system, it's not going to improve the situation. In fact, everything that has come from the society should go back to the society, and therefore we need to have an overhaul of our tax system. Mr. Lee Chi-king from the Liberal Party. Well, very often in Hong Kong, we talk about the poverty alleviation policy. There is a big problem. That's because the SAR government does not have any direction and any logic or philosophy behind this. Whoever speaks louder, then she'll get the share. If Chen Yun-han shouts louder, then she'll get what she wants. And then if Lee Cheuk-yan shouts louder, then he'll get what he wants. So we have to come up with some overarching principles. For the Liberal Party, would like to say the following. Number one, we believe that for poverty alleviation, we should focus on helping those who are in genuine need. What does that mean? Actually, our policy should target at those in need. We should not be helping everybody across the board, and also in terms of income and assets, there should be means tests. Secondly, we should focus on helping those who are not able to contribute to society by working. For example, our elders, they are already rather senior in age. They've worked in the past, and also single parent families, and also the disabled, because there is no way that they can continue to work anymore. Who we should not help is those who are able to work, but then they choose to ask the administration to support it, and yet they choose not to work. So we are calling those abusers of the CSSA system, and the administration should also be held responsible for that, because there are two types of people abusing the system. The first is in a minority. I don't want to see them. Well, they might have chosen not to work because they don't like to work. Well, for this group of people, actually, it's already rather shameful. And the second type, in fact, they should get some sympathies, but then it's also a creation of the administration, because they lack this low-income subsidy, because in some cases, well, they are actually not working so that they can be eligible for CSSA, because even if they work, the income would be somewhat lower than what they can get under CSSA. So why do they bother to work? That's why, if we want to avoid people from abusing the CSSA system, all right, the Liberal Party said that for CSSA there should be limited to 2 years, and also there should also be a requirement for community service and so on. What's more important is we will have to introduce this low income subsidy, because behind all these, what we are thinking about is we should help those who are willing to work, those who are willing to contribute to our society, because by working, it's not just to make ends meet, it's not just to support yourselves. I think the rationale behind this is that we should encourage people to contribute to society so that they can pay back to society, and that would also add some meaning to their lives. That's why we urge the administration to introduce this low-income subsidy as soon as possible, so that the meaning of life, the meaning of work, can be returned to these people. Thank you. Ms. Mabel Lau. All right, for people who have not applied for CSSA, they really need the support from the administration, because they're willing to find jobs. They would really want to contribute to society, but then they have not been able to make ends meet. That's why the administration should help them so as to ease their burden. That should be done, but then the administration has been putting in the resources at the wrong places. I think they are actually supporting the lazy people who are not willing to work, and if you're not able to find a job because of your personal conditions, then the administration should be understanding. It should help you. But what is happening now in Hong Kong is that we are using resources to help those families who are now not on CSSA, and actually we are actually using the resources to help the CSSA recipients. In fact, I think the situation is getting worse as far as people who are unemployed and on CSSA. In fact, for people who are on CSSA for more than 2 years, well, from 2004, it increased from 59% to some 80% in 2012. And for people who are on CSSA for more than 5 years, actually it has more than double, from 25% to 57%. Yes, it's true that the administration has attempted to introduce the work incentive program, but then the requirements are too lax. And if you think that for the applicant, if he only needs to work or apply for 2 jobs once every 2 weeks, and he would attend interviews organized by the SWD, and then only once every 2 weeks they will have to come out to work, then will that increase their employability? And some people are thinking that, all right, if they're able to get CSSA and if they do not have to work, then they can have an easy life. Why bother to work? But then why do we have to see people who are 100% able-bodied, who are able to work, and yet they are on CSSA, they are living entirely on the administration? That's because the money has gone into the hands of these people, and those who are in genuine need, who are actually the poor people, they have not been assisted at all by the administration. That's why I think what the administration needs to do is to target those who are actually habitually unemployed. For example, there should be a time limit for CSSA. For example, if you've been on CSSA for more than 2 years for unemployment, then if you apply for a renewal or extension, then there should be a vetting committee to scrutinize your case. And if the administration is able to eliminate that situation of abuse, then naturally there will be more resources for welfare, so that the administration will be able to help the working poor, and they really need the support from the administration. Thank you. Next, Anthony Yu. Whatever the administration does to help the grassroots, I think the most important thing is they will have to be able to become self-reliant, or else it's like giving out licenses during the Chinese New Year. I agree that there are people who need help in our community. What I'm referring to are the weak and the frail. But then for those who are able-bodied, who are not able to find jobs, well, is the administration helping them by giving them money? Well, just imagine if they do not have to work, and if they are able to get a steady income, then basically that's against the principle that we should be studying and work hard before we can make a living. Just look at other countries to see how they help them. In the UK government, there will be subsidies, and if you earn £1, then the administration will give you 0.35 pounds. And then in Australia, you will have to undergo professional training before you can get a subsidy. And therefore, in many countries, there are a lot of add-ons and requirements and strings attached to this. Why are we not doing the same? And looking at Hong Kong, in fact, our economy is doing quite well. And even for me, who does not have any working experience, I've been able to find a job earning several $1,000s. And even for a construction site worker, he can make up to $10,000 a month. And then for the able-bodied people who are on CSSAs, should they try to help themselves and lift themselves out of poverty? And whether or not you're on CSSA, the administration's assistance should be for those who are in need, so that they can lift themselves out of poverty and move up the ladder, instead of just waiting for the administration to give them handouts on a regular basis. There should be a time limit, and there should also be strings attached, so that everybody will know that if they work hard, they'll earn something, and they can support themselves. Only then will we have a healthy development and growth. Next, Ms. Lam Yan Pui. Chairman and everybody, good afternoon. Well, for low-income families who are not on CSSA, and also for middle class who are borderline cases, they should be helped. It is about how the administration can deploy the resources effectively. And for those who are applying for unemployment CSSA, that's a related subject. I believe that there are many in the community who think that these people who are on unemployment CSSA are actually abusing the system, and therefore we should not be breeding the lazy bones. And there are those who hold opposite views, thinking that they are rather heartless, they are discriminating against the poor. In fact, we do not rule the possibility that there are indeed some people who are reliant, they are able-bodied, they do not work, and they just apply for CSSA. Earlier on, we heard this news. It's about a master degree graduate who is from a very elitist school, and yet he is now living on $1,800 a month, and he's a university graduate, and according to the university, well, actually, for his fellow graduates, they are actually earning some $17,000 or $18,000 on average. And the journalist asked him what he does. He said that he would just be wandering in the shopping centers and so on. He never tried to add value to himself. I think in a community, we do have people who are wasting resources. Let's not forget that, social resources are limited, and therefore the administration must use them very wisely, and these resources should only be spent on those in need. Well, many people have pointed out that for unemployment CSSA, they would account for less than 10% of those on CSSA, but then as a result of this, that would be enough to deprive many others who should be assisted. And because of this small group of people, that gives people the impression that CSSA is breeding lazy bones. That's why for those in need, they do not want to be labeled, and therefore they are deterred from applying for CSSA. That's why they're living in hardship. We must not ignore this small group of people. So the administration, if you really want to help those in need, you must distribute your resources effectively. For those applying for unemployment CSSA, there should be a strict requirement so that these able-bodied who are these able-bodied unemployed, if they are on CSSA, they should be encouraged to find jobs more positively so that they can rejoin the labor market. That would also promote the development of the economy. And for the money saved, that can be used to help the low-income people who are not on CSSA or the borderline middle class. In other words, they are working and yet they are not able to make ends meet, so they should be helped. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Simon Tam, North District Employment Concern Group. Now in Hong Kong, we have 360,000 handicapped persons, and 41,000 of them are working, and their salaries are ranging from $4,000 to $10,000. Many of them have to be bound by wheelchair, but they insist on working. They do not want to be parasites of society. However, they have to spend a lot on their traffic expenses, their living, etc. So, in particular, when it comes to healthcare pays, they really have to suffer a lot. And when they apply for subsidies, there are a lot of obstacles. And when they are compared with those who are on CSSA, well, those who are on CSSA can get subsidies for wheelchairs and healthcare services. So for those persons with the disabilities who insist on working, sometimes they are forced to give up on working, and they're forced to rely on CSSA. So I think the government should encourage these people to work. For low-income WDs, they should be given more support so that they can get reasonable rehabilitation services and healthcare services. However, has the COP looked at the working PWDs? I think they are the group of people who deserve the most help. The COP has a lot of powers and is very influential, so it should review the relevant policy and change the policies, and it should also be held responsible, or it should be held accountable to the people. The transparency of the COP should be enhanced. 2 weeks ago, the University of Hong Kong conducted, a professor of the University of Hong Kong wrote an article on the newspaper, and it's about Hong Kong's poverty policy. It depicts PWD, and he's wheelchair bound, and he has to rely on ventilation system, but he insists on working. However, because he insists on working, his household income exceeds the CSSA threshold by $1,000, so he's not able to apply for subsidy for his ventilation machines. So after disclosing such a case, he gets subsidies from the government, and now he can buy a ventilation machine. However, many professionals have also made a lot of comments. For example, Mr. Zhang Guoqi, Mr. Fernando Zhang, Mr. Chan Hong, etc. They have also made a lot of comments. However, the government has turned a deaf ear to their comments. For those PWDs who are severely handicapped, I think you should really relax the application conditions for them. Next, Ms. Yukman. Well, thank you for our association. That is the Catholic Diocese of Hong Kong Diocesan Pastoral Center for Workers' New Territories. We want to say something about the low-income subsidy. For traffic expenses, now it's very high, and it has a direct impact for low-income workers. We are servicing the new territories, and the traffic expenses for those who are living in the new territories are very high. It can be up to $50 or $60 a day. So for those people who are living in the NT, and if they want to work in the urban areas, their income is actually much less than those who are living in the urban areas, because they have to pay such a high traffic expenses. So you cannot just add the low-income subsidy into the existing WITS, and then you think you have done the job. I think a monthly ticket system should be launched, and also public transport transfer system should be enhanced so that people living in remote areas can enjoy a more convenient transport, and it can serve as an incentive for them to work. And also for labor living subsidy, it should be divided from the subsidy for the low-income families. Because for the transport subsidy, it's a subsidy for workers. However, for low-income household subsidy, you have to look at the average income and composition of different families. And also for families with aged people or with PWDs, their needs are different. So if you are subsidizing workers, the mode should be very different from the mode subsidizing low-income families. Otherwise, you are just confusing the public. We also think that the government should formulate a long-term poverty alleviation policy, for example, unemployment subsidies. In the remote rural areas, there are very few jobs because there's no industry. So the government should promote the development of logistics and green industries so that grassroots in the North Districts can be helped. Next, Mr. Chao-King, New Territories Evangelical Ambassador. I think the severe inflation has to be contained. The WITS should be changed into a household subsidy. For example, if a person lives in the NT and if he has to go to the urban areas to work, he has to pay $50 to $70 for traffic expenses per day. And many people cannot find jobs in the districts they are living in, including their children, and the children may also have to travel to the other districts for schooling. So transport subsidies as well as lunch subsidies should be provided to their children. By doing so, you can give them a better life. And also for wages, now, for most of the jobs, there is no meal subsidy. And when we go out for a meal, it would cost at least $30. So we hope that the government can also provide people with meal subsidies so as to alleviate their burdens. Now the wage is really too low, and the inflation rate too high. So the wage can never catch up with the inflation, and some employers are utilizing loopholes in the law so that the working poor are affected, and sometimes they would pay women workers less, and also they are not willing to hire PWDs. And if PWDs cannot get a job, they will become a burden of their families. And now the rental level is really too high, in particular for those who are living in subdivided units. Their rent may account for more than 1/3 of their monthly income, and their living environment is appalling. So we hope the government can subsidize these low-income working households. That is for the households that are making less than $7,500 per month. I hope that meal and transport subsidies can be provided to them so that they can cope with the serious inflation. Thank you, Ms. Law Lai Ping from Smart and Beauty House. Now, for the Hong Kong society, there is a very huge wealth gap. Although many people are still working, they still have an income. However, the income cannot catch up with the inflation. And each month, they have to try their best to save money in order to cope with their daily lives. So that's why we see this new scenario in our society, and we also see this new word, the working poor. But the government has also discovered this problem. We are not just talking about the elderly poor, we also have the working poor. The government has implemented some measures to ease poverty. However, those were one-off measures, and they were not able to lift the poor out of poverty. So when the government draws up a poverty line, it has to look at the 60th percentile of household income, so that the problem of intergenerational poverty can be addressed. And also for children from low-income households, they should be given a monthly subsidy of $600. Otherwise, they cannot pay for their tuition fees or extracurricular or internet fees. Well, people should not be deprived of social life if they are poor. So you should try to think for the children more, and you should take care of the people living in poverty and give them more assistance, in particular the elderly. We do not want to see the elders picking carton boxes in the streets, and some of them may even encounter traffic accidents when they do so. We will never want to see that again. Ms. Evangeline Lau. I have talked to a number of cleaners in Shanghai, and they are employed by government contractors. And now the SW statutory minimum wage is set at $30. So for these people, they are making $7,440 per month, but it's not enough for them to make ends meet. In Shanghai, the rent is now about $2,000 to $3,000 per month. So no matter whether they are working in the same district or going to other districts to work, they have to spend a lot on traffic. For example, if they take a bus from the rural areas to the urban areas, the bus fare is very high. And lately, the MTL has increased its fare by 2.7%. So it adds more to the burden of these people. And also, inflation is serious. So for the grassroots, even though there is SMW, they still cannot cope with their daily needs. So we hope that the government can launch low-income subsidy so that for the working poor, their pressure can be eased and they can lead a more dignified life in the community. Thank you. Mr. Kwok Hong Lee. Thank you, Chairman. I support the introduction of the low-income subsidy for the low-income working households. This is a remedial measure. The core of the problem is when it comes to labor policy, there's not enough protection for the laborers. That is why there is the problem of the working poor. So in 2010, the government legislated on SMW, and it was formally introduced in 2011. When the government fixes the SMW level, it has not taken into consideration that the laborers would have to take care of their families. Because for this SMW, it's not enough for the workers to feed their families. For SMW, we see two problems. We hope the government will look into them. First, when it comes to first is the SMW rate, and second, the method for calculating the SMW rate. So for SMW, the government provided information to the Legislative Council, and the government stated that when it considered the SMW, the principle, well, actually, they would look at the employment situation, the inflation rates, the wage level, and also Hong Kong's competitiveness. However, for other data and for the families of the employees, the government has not taken them into consideration. Well, for the International Labour Organization, it states that the SMW is to ensure the needs of the worker and his family can be satisfied. So when the government sets the SMW rate, it should also look at the needs of the worker's family. It shouldn't just be looking at Hong Kong's economic development and the competitiveness of corporations. And also some deputations have also mentioned this. That is, the SMW is reviewed every 2 years. However, if you do this, then the SMW will never catch up with the inflation rate. Now, lately, we've seen that for Hong Kong's public transport, KMB and MTR, from 2008 onwards, in the past 5 years, they have increased their rates. They have increased their fares 4 times, and the total rate of increase is 13%. And also, for the other transport company, it has also increased its fare by 13% in the last 5 years. So if you review SMW every 2 years, you really cannot catch up with inflation. We adopt an open attitude toward the low-income subsidy. However, we think the crux of the issue is that you should have a policy protecting workers. Thank you, Ms. Choi Chung-wai. Thank you, Chairman. For subsidy for low-income working households, I think you should look at 2 issues. That's first, the policy intent, and second, the implementation method. Now, when we look at the logical paper, we do not see a clear policy intent. Now, what's the purpose of low-income subsidy? Are you offering them subsidy so that they can make ends meet, or are you encouraging people to be employed? Now, for the WITS, Mr. Chang made 1 point in his early implementation. That is, for the means test for WITS, actually it should be similar to the means test for public housing. However, now they still do not tally. So this is exactly the point. Now, if WITS is to encourage people to work, then it's a labor policy. It should not be confused with a social welfare policy. If WITS is a labor policy and it is to encourage people to work, then for those people who are making the least wage, and if they still cannot be eligible, then this is defeating the purpose. So for Mr. Chang, I think he himself is not too sure about what WITS should do. That is, whether it is to encourage people to work or is to subsidize people. So you're neither here nor there. And also, for low-income subsidy, you really have to look at the way of providing it. Now, I'm working for a Catholic group, and we are conducting a study on cross-district employment. And we discovered that a lot of employees' wages are between $7,700 and $8,800, and most of them would have to spend $1,000 on their monthly traffic expenses. So the WITS really doesn't help them much. The working poor is a very important element in Hong Kong's wealth gap. So you really have to review the whole problem. And I think the government has not made enough efforts. In 2004, 21 million families in the USA got tax refund from the government, and many of them benefited a lot from this policy. Now, in the future, we're going to drop a poverty line, and it's going to set in half of the median income. Maybe we should take reference from the U.S. So for the income level for the low-income subsidy, I think you should do it very carefully, and the level should be set in a reasonable manner. Mr. Wu Fouchi. Thank you, Chairman. I am the chairman of a group of a Catholic organization, and I myself am a teacher. And I see that my students are facing a lot of problems. Well, I do not know the exact figure. Well, for the families which are on CSSA, how many of the children are able to get into Band 1 schools? Not to mention the international schools or the more expensive schools. And for intergenerational poverty, I'm really very concerned about this problem.
Particularly, I'm concerned about social opportunities, extracurricular activities, tuitions, etc. How much can we assist the low-income households, in particular the elite students? How many opportunities they have? As regards SEN, special education, so many schools have been closed. Relatively speaking, students get less chance to receive education, particularly for the Band 3 students. For those with no power or money, they have less chance of receiving education. That's why I hope that the Secretary and the administration can understand the situation. As for the transport subsidy and low-income subsidy, I agree with my Catholic friends here that they should be treated separately. Policy objectives are important because the low-income household subsidy will be able to assist such families when we get high inflation and low wages. From a macro point of view, I have the following views. Hong Kong is a very small place, but with a very open economy. The Liberal Party has representatives here. The party always reminds us to earn money. At the same time, we should know how to be a human being. Apart from teaching people to earn money, should teach people how to be a human being. At present, we do not have sufficient low-skilled workers, so I hope the administration will pay attention to that. Thank you. All deputations have spoken. 5 minutes for you, Secretary. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to thank the deputations and individuals for their views. I'm really grateful to them. Let me focus on a number of major concerns. Two friends here asked for the timetable for a low-income subsidy for households. We're exploring this. In May, the COP convened a meeting to discuss that. The issue is complicated. Just now we heard different views. It's not that simple. Today's hearing is a very good platform for me to obtain collective wisdom. After summarizing your views, I'll refer them to the COP because we have a committee to look into social security and retirement protection. As for this particular issue, the administration is totally open. In society, there are voices that we should provide a subsidy for low-income working households. So we'll seriously and solemnly explore the issue. That's number one. Secondly, Mr. Lee Quing mentioned the social enterprises. He said that we should do more on that. I absolutely agree. Under the COP, there's a task force dedicated to social enterprises. In particular for creativity, we've got an allocation of $500 million for the promotion of social enterprises and to provide more job opportunities. We'll also provide more job opportunities for the disabled. In the coming days, in terms of social enterprises, we'll definitely work harder. That's number two. Number three, a number of friends, including Mr. Lee from Liberal Party, mentioned the CSSA for the jobless. They said that we should try to urge them to find jobs. Yes, we did sit down in LegCo to have a discussion. The ESWD is very concerned about this. For the able-bodied, they should try as far as possible to finance themselves. And starting from January this year, we implemented a number of self-reliance programs targeting the unemployed to receive CSSA. 260,000 odd CSSA cases, 400,000 recipients are covered. As for unemployment CSSA, we only got 30,000 cases. In the past few months, the number has been dropping. So members should understand that the situation is improving. It's not true that many people are trying to obtain CSSA without working. In fact, the number is dropping. As for social enterprises, apart from doing social welfare, they should also provide training, and we would also like them to go back to the job market as soon as possible. I'd also like to say something about the SMW, which was mentioned by a number of deputations here. Just now, Ms. Lau Chung-kei said that in Changshui, some workers, cleansing workers, earn just $7,740. Ms. Lau should go back and ask them to apply for the Work Incentive Transport Subsidy Scheme plus MPF that will be increased to $8,105. And we're talking about 208 hours. So even individuals can apply for the subsidy. We have to tell them how to apply. Some of them just don't know how to apply. Over TV programs and through leaflets, we've been doing publicity and promotion to allow more people to benefit. As regards the annual review, as I explained to the manpower panel, if inflation becomes very high suddenly, the biannual review can become an annual review. It depends on the economic situation of the whole society. Thank you. Colleagues, members should be asking questions starting from 6:45. As some deputations have not come, with 7 minutes more. Some deputations asked whether they would have a second chance to speak. If members so agree, we'll give them another opportunity to speak. How many deputations would like to speak again? 4? 1 minute each. Ask your questions, and the secretary will answer the questions in one go. Ms. Li Tengfeng, Chu Xin, Lang Shek-lung, and Chan Shek-lun. And Ms. Evangeline Lau, am I correct? So 1 minute each for follow-up questions for the Secretary. Meeting phone. The first thing that I'd like to mention is the second security net. Some friends just now said that some support schemes are unclear in their indicators and amount of subsidy. And Mr. Kin-kee from Liberal Party said that to assist the poor, those people should work in order to contribute back to society. What about the SMW? It should be enhanced to such a level that the low-income households can benefit directly. That is to plow back labor to society. So I hope Mr. Lee from Liberal Party can hear us correctly. Well, members, I've received a motion. We need 7 members to vote on the motion. We're now 1 short. Ms. Chiu, I'd like to remind participants today that this issue is to provide assistance to the non-CSSA recipients. So we should not use this platform as an excuse to take away something from the CSSA recipients. For those getting just $7,000 odd, they should not make use of this opportunity to get $1,000 more. So Liberal Party should not steal the limelight from us. If they know that many CSSA recipients are cheating the government, please report them to the administration. What about your policy to assist the poor? Do you have a checklist on gender mainstreaming? And in response to Mr. Lee of Liberal Party, would you support a subsidy for the low-income group? As for collective bargaining, we always call Mr. Tommy Chung $20 Chung. What incentive should be given to our people to encourage them to work? So don't hijack this issue. As a human being, I should respond to the Liberal Party's remarks just now. Even if a CSSA recipient has been receiving an unemployment subsidy for 2 years, why should these people be targeted? Why shouldn't we target the tycoons who are enjoying big golf course? They are the lazy bones. As for CSSA recipients, their living conditions are very poor. Why should you still suggest that we take away further resources from them? I'm dissatisfied. And Secretary, what about child care or nursery services? You did not respond to our remarks. Because of insufficient services, some women have to stay at home to take care of the children. And then for the whole household, only one low-income male is the breadwinner. So women are very often not given a choice. Mr. Kin-kee? Mr. Kin-kee, would you please switch on your microphone? I'd like to respond to some of the participants just now. Maybe they did not hear me clearly. My argument is that we hope that through this low-income subsidy, we can ensure that the incentives for abusing CSSA will go. One of the causes for abusing CSSA is that a working poor earns less than in CSSA than a CSSA recipient with no job. This is to complement what we previously proposed. That is to restrict the duration of receiving CSSA. That's number one. Time's up for you. Miss Evangeline Lau? Yes, I'd like to respond to the Secretary's remark that the transport subsidy could assist the workers. For the workers earning $7,740 minimum wage, when they work overtime for just 2 days, they will not be eligible anymore for the transport subsidy, the income threshold of which is $7,700. For a worker working 8 hours a day at $30 per hour, they're eligible. So the incentive scheme, is it really helping those low-income workers earning $30 an hour and working for long hours? Secretary, those are very consistent remarks. 3 minutes for you. All right, Mr. Long asked whether gender mainstreaming would be considered in assisting the poor. Yes. We try as far as possible to take care of the needs of different genders, be it in terms of nursery services, childcare services, or whatnot. We're concerned about nursery services. We seriously consider how the services can be well provided. Our population is aging. We have to release the labor of women. So support work must be done well, and nursery services is very important. We have a particular task force on the ethnic minorities, the women, and the disabled. We'll try to perform better. As for Ms. Evangeline Lau's question, yes, plus NPF is $8,105, but for 2P household, it's $13,800. Plus NPF is over $14,000. And then plus CSSA is over $15,000, maybe all the way up to $16,000. With asset limits of $153,000. So frontline social workers should explain this leaflet to the public. We distribute these leaflets for publicity purposes. Well, so much for deputations. Of course, if you are interested, you can stay on to listen to the discussion between us and the Bureau Director. There's a motion. This panel requests the government to, as soon as possible, set up a territory-wide household income-based and family-size-based subsidy for low-income households. Mover is Mr. Leung Yiu-chung. Second, Mr. Chung Kwok-chi. Any supplement? I'll leave more time for discussion. Any objection? Any abstention? No. So the motion is carried. Lee Chao-yan, Dr. Fernando Chung, Leung Kwok-hong, and myself, as well as Mr. Leung Yiu-chung, would like to speak. Well, Mr. Leung Yiu-chung raised his hand first, isn't it? Lee Chao-yan, Fernando Chung, Leung Kwok-hong, Leung Yiu-chung, and myself. Lee Chao-yan first. The Secretary's responses today are very much hollow. He always said that the COP would consider our requests. Low-income households, women, nursery and childcare services, etc., all will be referred to the COP. What about this low-income subsidy? Basically, will the government do it? And how to go about it will be discussed by the COP. Nursery and childcare services, basically you provide them. The COP will study the details and, of course, will ask for a timetable. Low-income people are treated unfairly. You mentioned social enterprises, but for the disabled, there's no minimum wage. They've asked the administration for money, for subsidy. So why are the disabled excluded? As for placement counseling, is treated as a form of subsidy only. They may even lose insurance. So all social enterprises should give disabled employees the SMW. You say that they may not be able to win the bid. Well, give them exclusivity. Make sure that they will win their bids. That is, for those social enterprises catering to the need of the disabled. The LCSD has a lot of these social enterprises. SMW should be provided to the employees. Can you tell us whether or not you're going to give us an undertaking in terms of direction? The COP will study the direction. When will solutions be released? 5 minutes, Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Lee Chak-yan. Frankly speaking, we don't have any formed views yet. Will the SMW be provided to the disabled employees of social enterprises? Frankly, I don't have an answer here. The COP will study that. Today we've heard a unanimous voice that councillors would like us to do more on SMW. The chairman invited us to discuss this issue. We're willing to discuss with you, but in the COP we've not had an in-depth discussion on that yet. We only convened one meeting. So after collecting your views today, I'll go back and see how we'll assimilate those views. Yes, we are sincere in doing something. We'll help the working poor to self-finance themselves.
On childcare services, it's nothing new because we've been doing a lot to help. Well, for example, the neighborhood nanny scheme. Actually, last week we also went to Tin Shui Wai to see what we can do to improve the situation because according to some, there is a lot of room for improvement. We have an open mind. Actually, our inclination is that whatever can be done where resources permit, and if it's efficient, then we will be prepared to do it. And then for the disabled, you're right. Well, for the LCSD, in the tendering exercise, some priority will be given to the disabled group. All right, if you're willing to hire more disabled, then we'll be prepared to offer you higher wages. And also, our task group has also been looking into how that can be further strengthened so that more job opportunities can be created for the disabled. On the last point, I'm not just asking for job opportunities for the disabled, but then they should be paid SMW because this is really outrageous. All right, being a social enterprise, how come you are not offering them SMW? I'm not talking about priority. I'm talking about exclusively for them, so that we should be offering the contract to the social enterprises so that they do not have to compete with others. And if you're not able to do even that, that's really outrageous. You should have been able to offer them SMW. I think some progress should be made. Can I barge in? All right, for these social worker or social enterprises, they would treat this as training and they would not treat it as going to work. Well, that's even worse because they won't even be able to get employment compensation or insurance, let alone SMW. So what's the purpose of having social enterprises? Actually, it's not just about giving them jobs. You're not just asking people to work. You can be so miserly. You're actually offering them some $15 in some cases. In fact, you should be offering them a decent job. They should be paid decently so that they will be able to live in dignity. I think there should be an overview or review of this. All right, please do not refer to the community nanny service because I've been complaining that they've not been offered or paid SMW. But then do you have any vision as to what extent you are prepared to go? All right, for primary schools, there should be after-school care so that parents can enroll on their own volition, and then these services should be run by the NGOs. And then if you have this vision, then you will be doing it extensively. Do you have that instead of doing this on a patchy or piecemeal basis? And also, when are you going to give us your stance on standard working hours? All right, say you can give us a timetable of say 6 months. All right, 3 questions. All right, let me say a few words on social enterprises. All right, if you're working under the business starter scheme, all right, we can give you up to $2 million, but then you will have to recruit or hire at least half of your employees will have to be disabled, and then you'll be eligible. And you just refer to whether we have a specific timetable. All right, for the time being, we are not able to give you that, but then we can say that we are very concerned about this, and we hope to decide on the way forward as soon as possible, because for this term of government, we are starting on our second year, and we really hope that during this term, we'll be able to do something specific to help improve the livelihood of the grassroots. In fact, poverty alleviation is one of our highlights and priority. That's why we would like to do something as soon as possible. Yes, Lam Kwok Hong. I think, all right, you've managed to get $15 billion for the CCF. All right, just assume that you can spend 1% of what you have, and you're actually coping with the situation, and you're describing it as something really very difficult. But then in terms of your spending, actually, it shows that you have no sincerity at all, given the fact that you're only spending such a small portion. And also, you use the term poverty alleviation, and apparently rights have been turned into welfare. And by that, you mean social welfare. And actually, you're thinking that you're actually giving them as an endowment, and for people approaching you, you would say that you would say that actually there are people who are worse off than you. So can you be more cruel and callous? So for rent control, when are you going to reinstate that? Because how can you control rent if there is no rent control? Because everything will be pocketed by the landlord. And if SMW, initially it was set at $28, I thought it was too low. Because if you pay too low, then it's difficult. If you set it at too low a level, then it's difficult to raise it subsequently. And therefore, when you try to introduce a systemic statutory minimum wage, how are you able to catch up if it's set at too low a level? When you measure these things, you should, instead of measuring how many hours a person should be working, you're actually doing this just arbitrarily. If you assume a person has to work 8 hours a day, and if he has to work 44 hours a week, then can you do the calculation and see if he can make ends meet by earning $28 an hour? Even if he works 48 hours a week, would that be enough? I think you're artificially creating this poverty. All right, for poor people raising their children, is that their own responsibility? Because their children would also have to work as hard labor too. So you're actually creating this generation of poor people after poor people. So, are you crazy? You're actually breeding this low-income group. All right, for poor people raising their children, I think they are also trying to contribute to society by turning them into useful labor, and therefore you should support them. And thirdly, is about the Labour Party. Well, the Labour Party says that, all right, actually we are breeding a lot of lazy bones. Of course, that's true. Because if CSSA only pays you $1,800, then how can you support yourself? This system itself means that people cannot afford to be lazy. That's why there are so few people who are on unemployment CSSA, because they are not able to lead a dignified life. I think the way the Liberal Party is describing the whole situation, of course, I think they are actually playing it up. All right. Tony Chan is claiming the estate of Nina Wang. Are you saying that we should do away with the estate system? We should do away with feng shui and geomancy and so on? Do you want to give them time to respond? And you also talk about developing the neighborhood nanny system. Well, why don't you just give everything to the private sector? At least they'll be able to get $30 an hour. All right, they're only paying $19 an hour. You're actually asking the housewives, the homemakers to get less. So how can you develop childcare service if you're only paying them $19 an hour for them to take care of other people's kids? why don't they just, why should they bother? All right, where can you get the site in public rental housing estate and for daycare services? All right, they are not able to run such services. So why are you talking about childcare services? Is it that you would just bluff without really basing your arguments on solid grounds? So you're actually, for childcare services, yes, we are not able to do it. Please put yourself in the shoes of the poor people. Please no longer talk about $19 an hour. Why don't you just give them $29? I'll be willing to get $1 less than the SMW. All right, for elderly services. Well, when we try to introduce universal retirement protection, you're not willing to do it. You're actually making life so difficult for the old and the young. All right, if they are not able to support their parents, then they will have to declare it by signing in a certificate declaring that they're not going to support their parents. And then for children, you're actually forcing parents to have a hard time. Mr. Lang Yu-chung, I think I do share the views of many deputations. I think the core of the issue is that under the system, it has not been able to make sure that those who are willing to work will get reasonable wages, including traveling expenses and other living expenses. They are not able to make ends meet. That's why we have this difficult situation. In itself, is a quagmire. And that's the very core of the problem. Unless the administration is able to help, unless SMW can be raised, so that for any household, if it's able to meet its basic expenses, then why do we will no longer have this problem? In fact, this issue is now discussed by the COP. This is not right, because apparently you are treating this as if you were giving this as welfare. That's not right, because for the working poor, they're actually working, and they've also made their own contribution to our society. But then the return is disproportionate. They have not been able to get reasonable wages. That's why they have been living in poverty. And now you're actually asking them to appeal to you for further assistance. That should not be the approach. Bureau Director, you should be looking at their situation. That's because they're working, and yet because of their low income, they are not able to support themselves. You should help them resolve these problems. And there are different approaches. You do not necessarily have to introduce this low income subsidy. All you need to do is to increase their income. But then the thing is, regrettably, your SMW has not been able to achieve that effect. So what should be done? That's why we are asking for this low income subsidy. I think many deputations have made very valid points. But then the thing is, Bureau Director, you said that you have an open mind to listen to people's views. But then honestly, it's like what we said about you this morning. Well, these are no new things. If we only raise them this morning, then you can of course say that, all right, you have an open mind, these are new things, and you'll be prepared to consider all the comments. But then last year and during the last term of government, we already told you the same thing. Unfortunately, you were also the Bureau Director during the last term, and today you're actually a lot smarter. You would not say that, well, for this term of government, you're specifically concerned about this. Actually, this morning, I also made the same comment about you. Would you be prepared to say that this term of government is particularly concerned about the problem of poverty? If that's the case, then it means that during the last term of government, you were not concerned about this. So you should be more proactive, as Mr. Lee Cheuk-yen said. You should be looking at how you're going to implement this low-income subsidy. I think that would sound a lot better. That should be the right attitude and approach. And also, very often for the low-income families, and also for the poor family, well, there is a situation whereby they will have to take care of their children, and that's why they are not able to work. That's why childcare services are very, very important. And as some members have said, with regard to your community nanny scheme, it's not going to succeed because you're actually offering people such low wages. How can you expect them to resolve their problem? So please be more proactive. You've already heard the comment. You should see how you can improve the services. You should give recognition to this program. Bureau Director, my stance is very clear. I've already said to Mr. Lee Chut-yen that we would really very much like to work a lot harder to improve the situation for the poor. And that's why we said that we are seriously looking into this issue of a low-income subsidy. How about our community nanny? Well, according to the feedback that we got, actually it's rather popular. It's not as poorly received as you might have thought. I don't know where you get the feedback, where you got the feedback. Actually, I talked to some nannies myself, and last week we also visited Sham Shui Po and Tin Shui Wai. We went there personally, and the scheme itself is not an employment program. I've repeatedly said that at this panel. Actually, we're trying to motivate the community so that there can be more neighborhood support, and on the other hand, they can also make some earnings, because for the homemakers or housewives, other than taking care of their own kids, they could also make some earnings. But then it depends on the community that you're talking about. In some well-off communities, all right, they don't mind taking care of their neighbors' children, even if they do so for free. But then it depends on the different communities. Do you have anything to add? No. As I said, the COP will be looking into this, and we will also look at how we can step up or improve childcare services. Now it's my turn. Well, basically, we all agree that Hong Kong is an affluent society. The problem is the gap between the rich and the poor is really very wide. And last year, the median income is about $3.3. It's about 22,000 Hong Kong dollars per month. That's the per capita income. And if that's the case, then I think they should be able to afford anything. So for a 3P family, they are actually earning $66,000, but that's not true. I think you should know it better. And some 3.5 million workers are in the labor force, and we have a population of about 7 million. And it's about 3.3 million. So it's about one person supporting two persons. So if one person is working, then the money that he makes on average is not able to. If he's not able to support two persons, then system-wise is a problem. So the institution is a problem. All right, when we were young, in the 70s, when we were in at high school or primary school, only the father would go out to work, and then the mother would take care of the entire family. So the father was able to support the entire family, and in some cases we had 3, 4, 5, 6 children. So one man would be able to support the entire family. But then with the current level of affluence, if just one dad, just the dad is working, he's not able to support the entire family. So you will have to use your power to turn the clock to rectify the situation, so that if a worker is working, then what he makes should be able to meet his living expenses, i.e. the couple's expenses together with rent. And then for rent, it should be considered separately, because rent might fluctuate, as some deputations have told you. Because during this year, for subdivided flats, in some cases, there has been a rent hike of some $1,000. So for a worker working full-time, he should be able to make an income which is enough to support a 2P family plus rent. Well, if you're willing to pay him slightly over $10,000, that might be okay, if that's a reasonable level. Then when you look at the low-income subsidy for the low-income families, then you should use that as a benchmark. I think all the 60-plus deputations are only asking for this, and all they're asking for is for the administration to give them some support. I think we will have to look at it from our values and philosophy. Can the administration respond to this? Well, Chairman, basically, as I said, many of the comments are good, but then there are different views, and some deputations are against converting the WITS into something else. And therefore, you might have a point there, but then we will have to look at it comprehensively. We will have to look at the overall direction. We will have to go back and think about it. In fact, well, if the low-income subsidy is to work effectively, then you will have to position it correctly. Or else, as some deputations have said, there might be problems.
So we'll continue to look into this problem. Just now, you mentioned a person supporting two persons, and the rents should be looked at separately, etc. It will also look into that. Now, if the logic is right, I think you can adopt a multiple-pronged approach. For example, you can use subsidy, and also negative tax is also a way out. That is, maybe it's not in terms of social welfare, it's in terms of tax. Now, if I earn a wage, then I would have to pay tax. But if I cannot make enough money, then I can get something back from the taxation system. So this is to strike a balance. If we can find the point of balance, then we can give money back to that person. This is not welfare because he has made his effort, and for the total revenue of Hong Kong is enough to help these people. And actually our income per capita should be of a certain figure, and if this person cannot earn such a level of income, maybe he can receive certain sorts of subsidy. Mr. Liang Yiu-chung, do you want to supplement? Okay, then let's adjourn our meeting here. And I would like to add a point. That is AOB. Maybe the clerk can also send a circular to other members. Now, in the coming 2 meetings, we will be talking about support and subsidies for poor families. However, we have not talked about increasing their income and how they can create wealth, and how jobs can be created, and how wages can be increased, and how people can try to earn more money, etc. So I want to discuss these at one of our meetings. The COP has been discussing issues like this, so maybe we can add this agenda item to our future meetings. Tomorrow we will have another subcommittee on poverty meeting, and we will be talking about qualification framework, new arrivals, and